site, which is a rock shelter with a very well-known and very informative pictograph in it, which we fortunately have Carolyn Boyd and Poppy Hopkins to explain to us. Voila.
You're looking, that's Mexico, just straight ahead. So we're just a stone's throw from Mexico.
Is there any moment that you had some kind of insight or breakthrough that made it shift your interpretations about the things you were seeing, the rock art?
I think one of the things that hit me the most was what started back in 1988 when I first started coming out here, because I was working then professionally as an artist, a muralist as well as a fine artist. And when I looked at these rock art murals, I recognized them as compositions, not just a random collection of images, which is what everybody was saying about them.
By kind of reproducing them, you had sort of a new entrance into
right. So I
were.
started reproducing them as entire murals, you know, doing a rendering of the entire panel. And when I did that, I started seeing patterns and, you know, recurring motifs that were at multiple sites. This is really fascinating. And again, it goes back to that quote from Frederick Frank, that what you've never drawn, you've never really seen. So that when you start drawing it, you're forced to see things you would not normally see. You know, if I went back to the professional community, to the archaeologists, and said, you guys are wrong, these are compositions, this is not random, the chances are good that they're not going to pay attention, because I was just an artist. Mm-hmm. And artists are not taken all that seriously. So that's what I did. I went back to school and I got my undergrad degree. I finished it in '94, and I was an older student at that point, and then finished my PhD in '98. What I knew that I had to do, Bia, was to come up with a method to approach the rock art scientifically. But it was really important to me that people understand what it was that they were looking at with the rock art, rather than looking at it as just this random collection of images.
Because traditionally within archaeology, it's not like you have a very fixed methodology to contemplate rock art?
No, absolutely not.
Because archaeology is more focused on bones and ceramics and concrete.
And because of that, rock art studies have never been taken very seriously, or were not. That's now changing. And again, if they're compositions, what is it that they're communicating? I put forward the idea that this was portraying a ritual associated with the hunt for the sacred peyote. Well, how could you test that? Well, does peyote grow in this environment? Is it here?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
We have seen it is.
Do we have peyote in the archaeological deposits?
Are you talking about the Shumla Cave?
Yeah, which is a mile from here. So yes.
Which Martin worked on.
Right, and it predates the production of these rock art murals. This panel was probably produced around 0 AD, you know, right around that time somewhere. But the rock art itself goes back as far as 4,200 years ago. And the peyote has been radiocarbon dated to even before that. It's just like if you were presented with a whole body of Christian art and you had come in from another planet. You had no idea what you were looking at, and all the human species, the people on the planet were gone, right? But you look at this collection of art.
You see Jesus everywhere.
Yeah, what would you see? The cross, right? Mm-hmm. You'd see a lot of images of halos and lambs, and you're going to see patterns. That's key symbols. If you can understand that key symbol,
it starts to unravel.
Exactly. These circles that have been impaled and the dots that are decorating this deer are peyote. And you'll hear more about it. Careful. You know, this is fascinating. This suggests that peyotism was practiced here thousands of years ago. supported by the fact we've got the peyote in the deposits. But then what I started noticing, and this is where, remember you were asking, is it intuitive or what? It was interesting because when I was working on the rendering of this site back in 2001, I was also reading the book by Barbara Meyerhoff, The Peyote Hunt.
Yeah.
And I started recognizing other elements in this mural that tie to the hunt. And I thought, this is amazing. The white cord, the impaled deer, the 5 figures. There were so many things that tied back to the ritual itself. I couldn't believe it, and I shared it with everybody in the lab at A&M. This is unbelievable. Look at the parallels between the ritual reenactment of the hunt for the peyote and the mural.
Do you feel a spiritual connection to this?
This is where it gets difficult, and I know that Martin and Hoppy will understand this. I walk a fine line. When I first identified peyotism in the rock art, I was accused of being the drug lady by the archaeologists of the day.
Yeah, but you can't take these people too seriously.
No, but in my
They're
profession,
also gonna die.
in my profession,
Generations are gonna renovate.
as soon as you start talking about spiritual matters, you get crucified. And that's why I say I have to be very careful about what I say.
Would you say that you personally respect the cactus peyote?
Yes.
In which sense?
For the role that it has, for the role it performs, I shouldn't say has because it still does, in the native population and what I've learned myself personally.
You never tried peyote?
Mm-mm.
And may I ask why?
I just haven't had a need, I guess. I feel like I'm learning so much.
So let's say you haven't had a need to experience peyote, but you have an urgency to understand and decipher the murals.
Yes.
Interesting combination.
But I am not a part of this cultural group. What I see and experience under peyote will not be what they saw and experienced under peyote. And now,
but
I
you
may
do have a sense of mysticism about all of this.
Yeah. Okay, so
well, I'm not criticizing.
no,
asking.
it's just
it's
there will be a
just
day.
interesting.
There will be a day, but there
are
are
you
two
afraid
things
of
from
taking it?
not at all.
You're just not curious.
No, it's not that either. It's
You didn't have a call.
right. I'll know when the time is right and when the circumstances are right. But it goes back to what I was saying before. As soon as I utilize something like peyote, my credibility in the scientific community goes down.
Well, for all that matters, my credibility may be very down, and I'm here having a lot of fun. And
It's an interesting
doing
thing.
great
Anthropologists can get away with it before archaeologists.
well, but you're also an artist. And
I am an artist, and that's
have
why I was
scratched
referred to as the drug lady, because you're just an artist. You know, so
But why you care so much what other people think?
I care that this rock art is taken seriously. And I will do whatever I have to do to maintain the highest degree of credibility so that people don't throw it out as
Let's say
being
you're
foo-foo.
sacrificing your chances to experience peyote in the name of
Nah.
credibility
I'm experiencing peyote every day.
by studying this. I just wanted to invite Martin to come here and maybe share some ideas. I feel like I'm just very much like speculating that I think that Martin's relationship to the cactus resembles some similarity to yours, in the sense of this idea of, it's first the species and then I. And I feel you have the same sort of relationship.
About the rock art.
It's first the murals and then me. I don't know if you relate to this thought.
Yeah, absolutely.
What would you like to share about everything you heard?
My mentor was Richard Evans Schultes at Harvard, and that's where I really got my interest in psychoactive plants that have cultural significance. And I was in one of his lectures one time when a heckler from the back row who just wanted to ask an interesting and provocative question said, Dr. Schultes, you've studied all these plants from the northeast Amazon basin and so forth, and have you done them? Do you know what it's about? Have you experienced them? And his reply was, I would never publish on anything which I had not personally experienced. End of question, end of answer.
Well, however, she feels different about that.
Absolutely, and she's in a different field, where I think she would be more vulnerable if she were to comment on that.
I have focused my study on ayahuasca, and when I went doing research about ayahuasca, everybody told me, you have to drink ayahuasca if you want to study ayahuasca. And I thought there was a big power play in this, you know, and even I felt I was overdosed. Oh, you want to come and study? Here, take this big glass. Let's see if you can stand up. So there is a dimension of that I think there is a power issue and there's a test issue. But there's also a deep epistemological issue, which is these people are telling me that this is a plant spirit. This is alive. This has agency. This has subjectivity. However, I'm not saying everybody has to take it, and I'm not saying those who don't take it don't do good research, and I'm not questioning, you know, people's motivations for their research. I'm saying how it was for me, and I couldn't have done differently.
Right. No, I understand. And again,
it was in a way a kind of graffiti on the walls, but it told the history of how, you know, time came to be, how space came to be, big foundational questions about humanity. Apparently peyote is related to those original foundational myths, and they are very much at the essence of who we are and why we are humans and why we are here. So I think that has a lot to teach us, because we kind of consider this substance as countercultural or alternative, but traditionally these substances have been at the core of culture. That's how you learn to be who you are. That's how culture is transmitted. It's not only that they are not harmful, they are important for the survival of culture.